Did you find this exercise difficult? Your job was to read 5 sentences, and for each one to decide whether the sentence was a declarative sentence, an interrogative sentence, an exclamatory sentence, or an imperative sentence. We also threw in one sentence fragment, that is, a group of words that looks like a sentence but doesn't express a complete thought. Remember that in writing, a sentence fragment is incorrect. Let's look at the first sentence. When will tomorrow morning's band rehearsal begin? Perhaps you can tell by reading this sentence that it is asking a question. Therefore, this is an interrogative sentence, and it needs to end with a question mark. So that's the correct answer for this first question. Let's look at the second sentence. Always read the safety instructions before using a new power tool. What kind of sentence is this? Is it a declarative sentence? Does it state a fact? No, not really. Is it an interrogative sentence? Is it asking a question of you, the hearer? No, it isn't. Is it an exclamatory sentence? Is it expressing strong emotion? No, not really that either. It is an imperative sentence. Remember, an imperative sentence is one that makes a request or gives an order. And in this case, the sentence is giving an order or making a request of whoever reads it. It is telling that person that they ought to do something, namely to read the safety instructions before using a new power tool. Therefore, this is an imperative sentence. Remember that we said an imperative sentence may end with either a period or an exclamation point. It all depends on whether strong feeling or strong emotion is being expressed. In this case, no particularly strong emotion is being expressed, and therefore the correct way to end this sentence would be with a period. Let's look at our next example. Having spent over 2 hours working on her dance routine. Could you tell that this is the sentence fragment? This is a sentence fragment because it doesn't express a complete thought. There are a lot of words here, and we can see that someone spent over 2 hours working on her dance routine, but we can't really tell what's going on because it doesn't say who spent 2 hours on her dance routine. Therefore, the person who is doing the action is missing from this sentence, and what results is not a complete thought. We don't really understand what the person who wrote this sentence is trying to convey. This is a sentence fragment, not a complete sentence, and if it appeared in a piece of writing, it would be considered incorrect. Therefore, this is the sentence fragment and shouldn't be given any final punctuation because it's really not a complete sentence. Let's look at the next example. The local wildlife refuge is home to over 70 species of birds. This sentence states a fact. Therefore, it's a declarative sentence, the most common type of sentence in English, and it ought to be concluded with a simple period. Let's look at the final sentence. That was a fabulous party. Here is a sentence that expresses strong emotion. This is an exclamatory sentence. It ought to be marked with an exclamation point, which indicates that it's a sentence expressing strong feelings. The person who wrote or speaks this sentence is talking about how much they enjoyed the party and is expressing that with a lot of feeling. That's what makes this an exclamatory sentence and means that it should end with an exclamation point. Did you get all 5 of these questions right? I hope so. Now we're ready to move on to Lesson 2. Now we know what a sentence is, and we also know what the 4 basic kinds of sentences are. But let's take a step back. Remember that the topic for this program is sentence structure. Now, structure refers to the way anything is constructed or built or made. For example, a house is a structure that's made out of wood, bricks, and other materials. What is a sentence constructed from? Well, of course, the most basic unit is the word. But before we talk about individual words, we need to talk about some of the bigger parts that go to make up the structure of a sentence. In particular, there are 2 big parts into which most sentences can be divided. These two main parts are the subject and the predicate. Let's talk about each in a little more detail. The subject tells what the sentence is talking about. Now, the subject of a sentence may be only one word long, or it may include a number of words. In any case, the single most important word in the subject is the simple subject. The other words in the subject are there to give more information about the simple subject. And we'll see an example in a moment. The subject, then, is one part of the sentence, and the rest of the sentence, whatever is not part of the subject, is considered part of the predicate, which is the other main building block of a sentence. The predicate describes something that the subject is or does. The most important word in the predicate is called the verb. A verb is a word that expresses action or state of being. So we now have two main parts to the sentence. We have the subject, which names what the sentence is talking about, and the predicate, which tells what the subject is or does. Once again, within the predicate, there is one most important word to focus on, which is called the verb, and all the other words that are in the predicate are there to give more information about what the subject does. Let's take a look at a couple of examples of sentences and see how they can be divided into subject and predicate. Look at this example. My younger sister Ingrid once worked as a costume designer. Let's begin by looking for the subject of this sentence. Is there a word or a group of words that explains what the sentence is talking about? Yes, in this case, the first four words of the sentence make up the subject. Those four words tell us what the sentence is about. The sentence is about my younger sister Ingrid. Is there one word within that subject which is the most important word, the word that tells you specifically what the sentence is about? Yes, it's the last word, Ingrid. So Ingrid is the simple subject of this sentence. The other words in the subject are there to give more information about the simple subject. So the words my younger sister are there to give more information about Ingrid. They tell us a little bit more about who Ingrid is. Okay, if the first four words of this sentence are the subject, then the rest of the sentence must be the predicate. Remember that the predicate describes something that the subject is or does. Do the other words in this sentence describe something that Ingrid is or does? Yes, they describe something that Ingrid did at one time. Once worked as a costume designer. All of that is the predicate of the sentence. Notice how the subject and the predicate work together to express a complete thought. Either one by itself would be a sentence fragment. My younger sister Ingrid couldn't stand alone as a sentence. That's a sentence fragment. It doesn't express a complete thought. Once worked as a costume designer would also be a sentence fragment. Those words also don't express a complete thought by themselves. But when you combine the subject and the predicate, a complete thought is expressed. Now, is there one most important word in the predicate that tells exactly what Ingrid does? Or in this case, did, because it's talking about something from the past. Yes, there is one word that is most important in the predicate. It's the word worked. Worked is the verb in this sentence, and it's the most important word. It tells us exactly what Ingrid did. She worked. Notice that all the other words in the predicate give us more information about what Ingrid did. The word once, for example, tells us when she did it, at one time in the past. And the words as a costume designer give us more information about exactly how she worked, what kind of job she worked at. So all the other words in the predicate are there to give us more information about what Ingrid did. But the word worked is the most important word. It's the verb. So the heart of this sentence is the subject and the predicate, and in particular, the one-word simple subject and the verb. Ingrid worked. And all the other words in the subject and the predicate are there to give us more information about how and when and at what Ingrid worked. Let's take a look at another example. She enjoys creating things with her hands. Can you identify the subject in this sentence? In this case, the subject is only one word long, she. That word all by itself tells us who or what the sentence is about. All the rest of the sentence is the predicate. It tells us what the subject is or does.